conversation about the road to 50 million. I had a interesting experience that made me pick forgiveness or for to forgive as today's thought. Remember, the goal, my goal at least, is to give you encouragement every single day with these videos to help you believe in yourself, which we talked about yesterday, believe in your divinity, believe in your capability, believe that you matter, believe that you have power and purpose, and that you are here for a reason. Believe that. And if you don't, that's okay. But that's a place to start. I just was editing a video this morning as part of the television series called Creative Save the World. That's part of my outreach for my 50 million. And there's 10 episodes of that. And I'm editing episode 2, and I'll edit episode 3 later today. Episode 2 was about finding your gifts. And in the process of the interview, we talked about the fact that a lot of us don't believe we have gifts that matter. A lot of us don't believe that we could use them anyway, or that we could do something important, or we have a lot of story about that we're not good enough, we're not okay, and we don't believe, which was, we talked about yesterday, we don't believe that anything we would do matters anyway. We believe sort of that it's too late, or it's somebody else, or it belongs to someone else, or applies to someone else. We do believe those things. One of the interesting exercises is to write down what you believe. When you find yourself in a disempowered or frightening or scary situation, write down what you believe. I did that when I was in the hospital and manifested a miracle. This is right after I had come out of the coma. I'd been in for 2.5 weeks, and I couldn't get any information about how long it was going to take to, do physical rehab because I couldn't walk, all that stuff that happens when you're in a coma for 17 days. And I felt like I couldn't get any information about how long it was going to take and what I needed to do, et cetera, et cetera. And so in the middle of my despair one day, I remembered the framework that I had about changing beliefs and that I had been given by the divine in my visits at the door just a few days earlier. And so I thought, okay, step 1 is to write down what I believe. And I wrote them down in all their ugliness. I believe I'll never get out of the hospital. I believe I can't find out anything about what's going on. I believe nobody cares. And I wrote down the things that I believed at that moment. And then I read them out loud to myself, and I thought, gosh, they didn't truly resonate. They were an emotional expression. And I was able to explore more what I believed. And that was, at least it was still not positive, but it wasn't that dramatic. But anyway, that was yesterday about believing. And if you want to learn about this framework, about how to change your deepest, most difficult, complicated beliefs, then the book of Context. The book of Context is one I wrote describing this framework. And the framework manifested a miracle, me getting out of the hospital. So I know it's powerful and I know it works. And I use it with clients all the time. So if you have a belief, this is yesterday's, if you find yourself not believing that you're valuable, capable, you have something to do, or that you can't create the discipline or the focus or the goals or whatever it is, if you find yourself with that, you can change those beliefs. Absolutely guaranteed, 100%. They are not permanent, they are changeable. If you want at least my approach to do that, it is in the book of Context. The book of Context. Today, part 2, believe is first. And that's essential. If we don't believe, then everything we do after that is built on a foundation of sand. It doesn't matter very much because it's on this sandy foundation of I don't believe, I don't believe, I don't believe. I believe in you. I absolutely 100% believe in you. I believe you are divine. I believe you have gifts. I believe you have capability that you have barely begun to scratch. I believe that. And if you do, or if you feel that inside, I would just invite you with all my heart to listen to that feeling and then explore what to do about it. How do you change the beliefs that might be holding you somewhere? How do you get around those and get rid of them? Change them to positive. And I don't mean yelling at them or, screaming at them. I've never found that to be effective. So the book of context is for you. Today, excuse me, today I want to talk about part two, which is forgive. Forgiveness is so misunderstood, and that's why the last book I wrote is this, Forgiveness. And it's the subtitle is A Journey of Courage to a Place of Freedom and Power. And I wrote this book because I needed it. I wrote it about my journey and for me and to me, thinking, hoping that if I share things that I've learned and experienced and discovered with you, that it will be helpful, that it will give you some hope and a path and some activities. I even created a journal with it, the Guide to Forgiveness journal, so you can practice if the steps in there resonate with you as a possibility. I'm saying to you as a possibility, forgiveness will change your life. It will quadruple, multiply by 10 the personal power you have every day. I know that's true. I felt it, and I've seen it in the lives of others. Now, let's talk about why, because forgiveness is so misunderstood. So misunderstood. A lot of times people think forgiveness means pretending something didn't happen. So let's start with somebody does something that hurts you. Pretending that away is nonsense. You may have a permanent injury, physically or psychologically, because of that event. So you can't pretend that away. I use the example of my dog all the time. In 2007, I got a dog, and that was right after the divine intervention that changed my whole life in August of that year. And the dog taught me a lesson, and here's the lesson. On New Year's Eve, between 2007 and 8, the dog was a very young puppy. I was born in August, so 5 months old. We were playing around on New Year's Eve, and I had never had a dog before, and I felt like I was a little too rambunctious. So anyway, the dog bumped into a speaker stand, and the speaker fell off the stand and fell on the dog's foot. And it broke all the metatarsals. The dog was howling, and I felt awful and didn't know what to do. It was the middle of the night, and it's New Year's Eve. So Joy and I were running around on New Year's Eve trying to find an emergency veterinarian. And right around midnight, right around New Year's, we found one that was open. We took the dog in. Turns out that it broke all the metatarsals, and they did surgery and did everything they could. And when we got him back, they told us he couldn't walk for 6 weeks, couldn't walk around much, and had one of those cones on and everything else, and a cast and whatever. But they also told us the dog may have a limp. The dog may have a limp later. We don't think we can fix it all the way. And sure enough, later, when it got cold and when he ran around too much later in life, he had a limp. I felt awful. That was just, it's my fault. And for the rest of his life, the dog had a limp. I felt horrible about that. But you know what I learned? The dog wasn't having any of that. The dog didn't allow the limp to change anything about his experience other than the fact that if he ran around too much, he limped a little. But he dealt with it, he lived with it, and he fully enjoyed his life. So I have a limp from some of the things that have happened to me. I have some brokenness in me that is still there from abuse and other situations that I struggled with, and from mistakes that I've made. So here's the choice that you and I have. It's the same choice the dog had. If we let the events of the past that other people or circumstances, the universe, illness, the economy, a jet engine fell on your house, whatever it is, if we let those things that gave us a real limp, something that lasts, if we let them wreck the rest of our lives, then we live at half-mast. We live with half power. That is a choice that I see many people make. And then when they talk about it, they blame, this happened to me. I had a podcast guest the other day about it with a guy told me he was building a tennis resort in 2008 when the great recession real estate thing happened. That's now ancient history, 14 years ago. But at that time, it completely trashed him. He lost all of his money. He lost his house. He lost his cars. He was talking about having his cars repoed and his kids seeing it and all that other stuff. But behold the underlying truth. But he did not live in the excuse or the limp that could have created. I also know people that still say that ruined them and for the rest of their lives they're ruined. This particular individual said, regardless of that, I'm going to XYZ, and he created some stuff. Now, the economy and subprime loans and bad actors in banks and everything else, you can blame them, you can rail at them, you can scream at the government, we can do whatever we want, but it doesn't change the effect. When a person did something, like a person beat you or abused you or robbed you or something, then you have a person and you can rail at them and take your rage out on them. And people do. They hunt them down, they beat them up. Some people even take revenge and kill other people. But you know what? That never solves the problem, because my pain isn't taken away when somebody else gets punished. My limp is still my limp. So this is where forgiveness comes in. Choosing to forgive is not forgetting. It doesn't get rid of the limp. It simply gets rid of the power the past event had in this present life, in this present moment. So I was abused. I could let that control my life, and I did for a long time. I blamed a lot of stuff on it. You know what? I forgive 100% those people. I don't know in the eternal cosmos thing what has to happen, but that's not mine to worry about. By forgiving, it means I have completely deleted any negativity. I can be filled with love. That person or persons did whatever they did, and that's theirs to worry about. Mine to worry about is to let that go, change who I'm being, not worry about the limp, and love you. But as long as I carry that pain and that blame, then I can't love you as much as I could otherwise. So, and some people say, well, you can't put yourself in danger. Of course not. You don't, if someone hurt you or abused you, you don't run back, and that isn't forgiveness. Forgiveness is removing the energetic power, removing the hurt in you. Often, if someone hurt you or abused you or did whatever, they're gone somewhere else, and they don't even know that you are or are not suffering. And so if you keep that grudge and negativity and limp, all that's happening is you're drinking poison and waiting for them to die. And you've heard that before, but it's true, and it's not going to work. So forgiveness is a liberation. It is a gift you give yourself. It doesn't mean put yourself in danger or any of that kind of stuff. And it might teach you a lesson about how to behave with people or things to look out for and so forth. But it doesn't have to limit in any way, shape, or form your talents, your gifts, and your love. And remember, this whole thing, Road to 50 Million, is about helping you, 50 million of you, discover your gifts and then serve with them. Well, what I know is my past, my own struggles, the abuse that was heaped on me and the abuse I heaped on others as an addict and all the other stuff, those things have tempered and taught me. They've changed who I am, and they've made me better, more powerful, more loving, more patient, more kind. And if I keep the baggage from the old, it just limits what I can do in the present. So that deals with forgiving people who hurt you. It's your choice. They may or may not ever want to be forgiven. They may not even care that they hurt you. They may not. None of that matters. That isn't ours to worry about. What is ours is to be the brightest light we can, forgive, and allow whatever cosmic justice there will be to worry about anything else. And that frees me and you to be all in all the time, right here, right now. And the other side of that coin, and the one that was hardest for me, even though I had been abused and I had a lot of people to forgive, the one that was hardest for me was the mistakes, the unkindness, the selfishness, the lying, all the things that I did to others. So I created negative consequences, negative feelings, lack of trust, loss of, betrayal and all those things because of my addictions and depression and everything else. I do take responsibility. But taking responsibility doesn't mean forever I live, oh no, what if I had only? Because as long as I keep living like that, I can't help anybody else. So here's the secret: forgive yourself. Sometimes when I say that, people go to the same place. They think it means pretend you didn't do whatever you did. You know, you don't pretend anything. You do what you can to fix it. If you took something, you give it back, you apologize, you do the right thing. Whether someone else takes your apology or even accepts your effort doesn't have anything to do with anything. You sincerely and deeply have changed. I am not that person. Shakespeare said it. 'Twas I, 'tis not I. That was in a play, As You Like It, and you can look that up if you like. But it talked about a man who had changed, who he was being completely. And someone noted it and said, well, aren't you this and that? And he said, yeah, 'twas I. 'Tis not I. So our ability to change gives us the right and the opportunity to forgive ourselves. Now, the limps that we gave to others because of our mistakes, they may have them, and we may not be able to remove them. Again, that is in the providence of the divine. And on their own spiritual path, like I on mine, can choose and will or will not choose to forgive you or me for my mistakes. But you and I don't control that. We do what we can to fix it with all sincerity, and we apologize, and then we forgive ourselves so that we can serve with our gifts and talents, so that we can be a bright light now. If I continually carry a wet blanket over my life for the rest of my life because I made mistakes, then all I am is a wet blanket. That's not helpful. So whether you have been harmed or whether you hurt others, or both, like most of us, forgive. Forgive everyone, everything, all the time, including yourself. Change who you're being. If you were the person that did XYZ, don't be that person. Be a new person. Change who you are. Make the repairs you can and forgive yourself. Not, oh, it feels so good. So you can love and serve. So you can do what this whole road to 50 million is about, which is discover your gifts, which you can't do if you're in agony all the time, either at someone else or at yourself, and then serve with those gifts. As long as I was afraid, oh no, maybe they're going to hate me, maybe they'll never forgive me, oh, what if somebody finds out I did this or that? As long as I lived in that, you know what that's like. You can't do anything good. Or as long as I lived in fear of those who hurt me, I was useless. Forgive yourself. Forgive others. Forgive 100% everyone, everything, all the time. And I know there are those who are going to hear this right now and think I'm out of my mind. Okay, I love you. Forgive everyone, everything, all the time. Unleash your light. Do everything you can to be the light and serve with the gifts you have. It's a glorious and joyous place to be. It doesn't pretend or ignore anything in the past, but it does stop allowing the events of the past to limit your ability to be present today. Now, my road to 50 million is my commitment in this year from October 14th to October 14th to help you, 50 million of you, to discover your gifts and to serve with those gifts, creating purpose, prosperity, and joy for your life. And yeah, that might mean starting a business and doing all those other things, but those are secondary. The important thing is discover your gifts and serve with all your heart. Then creating a business and money and the rest, that's easy. The heart is the big part, the hard work. That's where it starts. So my 50 million, that's what I'm doing this year. I've committed to helping 50 million people to discover their gifts and serve with them. I'd like to talk to you. If you are living a life of purpose, prosperity, and joy, reach out. I'd love to hear your story and get acquainted, because I love knowing people that have completed or are diligently completing that process. If you are hurting and want help to discover and serve with your gifts, I'd love to have a conversation and get to know you, because that's my goal, is 50 million. And the third one is if you want to help me reach people, 50 million people, I'd love to talk to you because 50 million is a big number. I encourage you with all my heart. I know you are divine and capable. I know you can have a life of purpose, prosperity, and joy. And if there's anything I can do to help, let me know. The URL there on the page, yourultimatelife.ca, is a place where you can find some other stuff if you're interested in pursuing this a little more. We'll see you tomorrow.